Welcome to our deep dive into the Classics Club literature series by Honobu Inuzawa, the novels that inspired the beloved anime Hyouka. In this video, we will explore everything after the anime. While this video may lack of stimulating visuals and flashy edits, I encourage you to stay engaged and immerse yourself in the storytelling and character dynamics you cherished in Hyouka. So sit back, relax, and let's start reading the Classics Club together. Hyouka Volume 5 Prologue 1. Too long when simply running. In the end, it didn't rain. To think I had prayed as much as I had to. My prayer didn't go through last year either. This could only mean that praying for rain was completely useless. Now that I understood this, I suppose I would be able to peacefully come to terms with the inevitable next year when this happens again. If I don't need to do something, I won't do it. If I absolutely have to do, I'll make it quick. Today, I, Houtarou Oreki, learned that praying for rain was something I didn't need to do. Of the 1,000 or so Kamiyama High School students that were initially spread about the school grounds, a third had already disappeared. They had set off on a journey to the far reaches of a distant horizon. I knew that what they were doing was nothing more than profitless toil, but I felt no sympathy. After all, I would soon be following after them in their suffering. With an ear-grating howl, the megaphone was switched on again, and from it came a command. That concludes the third year Class 2A, come forward. Fellow students fell into their set positions as if they were being dragged along by something. Among them were faces brimming with spirited passion. However, most of the students had such a look of resignation on their faces that the tranquility radiated was almost saintly. I probably had the same exact expression on mine. There was a line drawn in chalk on the ground. Alongside it stood a general committee member, pistol in hand. He didn't radiate any bit of the unusual, no-nonsense severity normally found in a cold enforcer of cruel judgment like himself. Considering his markedly middle school face, he must be a first year. He stared intently at his stopwatch, in itself looking as if it wouldn't tolerate disorder for even a second. At the end of the day, he was just following his orders. Most likely, he wasn't even thinking about what kind of special significance his actions toward us held. Even if he were to consider it, at most, it would be something along the lines of, I didn't make this decision, my superiors told me to do it and I have to do what's assigned to me. It's not like I want to do this, so I hold no responsibility in the matter. It was precisely this thought process that allowed him to be capable of such an incalculable cruelty, without even so much as a change in his expression. Slowly he raised the pistol in his hand. Perhaps even now at this very moment, we will see a torrential rain so violent and so sudden that it will forever change the field of meteorology as we know it. And yet the July sky remained so refreshingly clear that it pissed me off. Not even foxes would get married on a day like this. Ready? Oh, that's right, didn't I realize it just a second ago? Heaven didn't respond to our prayers. I had other choice than to find the solution in a way only I could. Even until the very end, the committee member didn't look up from his stopwatch. With a thin finger, he pulled the trigger. An explosive noise rang out, and white smoke rose from the barrel. This was Kamiyama High School's Hoshi no Gyaka. At last, Class 2A was ordered to start running. Kamiyama High School was well known for the sheer amount of enthusiasm with which it treated club activities on campus, to the extent that it even counting just how many clubs there was a pain in itself. If I recall correctly, there were over 50 of them The Autumn Culture Festival took place over the span of 5 days, and the passion surrounding it was normally so intense that anyone with a cool head would agree that everyone was overdoing it a little. On the other hand, this meant that there was an overabundance of sports events as well. Although there were no athletes from our school that looked like they could compete in last year's sports inter-high, I heard that the martial arts club had a fairly impressive history with it. While things started to quiet down after the cultural festival ended, the sports festival started up right away. And in addition to that, a lot of major sports tournaments also took place right after the start of a new academic year. That said, I didn't find it all that grueling. It's not like I was bursting at the same with the desire to participate either. But I could at least agree to something like playing as a volleyball receiver or running a 200-meter relay. If I absolutely had to do, I could find it in me to work up a little sweat and show everyone a smile. I couldn't summon even that smile. However, when I was told to run further, specifically when I was told to run 20,000 meters, the Kamiya High School long distance running tournament takes place every year at the end of May. Apparently, its actual name is the Hoshigaya Cup. Even though the event was supposedly named after a graduate who previously established himself in Japan as a skilled long-distance runner, no one calls it in that. In contrast to how the cultural festival was called something enigmatic like the Tanya Festival. Even though it had no proper name, the Hoshigaya Cup was usually known simply as the marathon event. In my case, however, because my friend Satoshi Fukube only ever called it the Hoshigaya Cup, the name ended up sticking for me as well. Now it was possible that I should have been happy considering the marathon event was shorter than an actual marathon. But in the end, I really wished it would have rained today. According to Satoshi, the notice concerning the use of public roads indicated that in the event of rain, the marathon was to be stopped immediately and without reservation for the rest of the day. However, then he also added, but it's strange, isn't it? As far as I can tell from the records, the Hoshigaya Cup hasn't been stopped once to date. There must be a god out there looking out for the athletes in Hoshigaya Cup. That god is undeniably rotten to a core. I wore a white short-sleeved shirt and shorts that were somewhere in between red and purple, something like a crimson. The girls wore short ties in the same color. The school's emblem was embroidered on the shirt's chest area, and below that was sewn a paper bead displaying the student's class and name. The string holding my class 2A Oreki bead in place was already beginning to turn ragged. Sewing it on was a pain, and I ended up doing a half-pay job anyways. Not good. It was currently the end of May, so it didn't rain as much as it might have in subsequent rainy season. Considering they wouldn't be able to hold it the next day because of the weekend, if it had to be cancelled on Friday. It seemed like minimal consideration was given to the whole thing. Due to the 9 a.m. start, it was still unpleasantly cold as the sun rose. I would almost certainly start to sweat. On the school grounds, there was another interest aside from the front gates, and all of class 2 exited from it as they started to run. Goodbye Kanya High School, may we meet again in 20 kilometers. The Hoshigaya Cup course was not very clearly defined, in that only specific instructions were really do a lap around the back of the school. The thing was, however, the mountainous area behind the school continued all the way to distant, snowy Kamikuchi range. So in reality, the long distance run was something more along the lines of long distance mountain trek. I knew the exact course. You run a bit alongside the river that flows in front of the school, and then go up hilly roads at the right at the first intersection. The slope starts off gently at first but quickly ramps up in steepness. As you approach at the very top, it becomes a slope that mercilessly breaks one's body. Once you have climbed it, the road immediately drops. Just like upward slope, the decline is much longer and more violent than one might expect, and your overworked knees will surely cry out in pain. The end of the decline opens up a bit into a large expansion of countryside. You should be able to see the occasional house here and there. While there's little inclination in the road at this point, it continues in a straight line for what seems like eternity. So this stretch tends to do the most mental damage. Once you reach the end of the flat section, you have to overcome another hill. But unlike the previous slope, the climb on this one isn't as violent. The thing is, however, the road becomes extremely windy at this point, and the constant harping turns coming one after another tend to ruin one's rhythm. Ahead of that is an area in the northeastern section of Kamiyama city called Jinde, the place where Chitanda's house is located. At this point, you follow a thin river downhill. Continue making your way through the valley like this, and you will eventually return to the town area. Though in saying this, it's not exactly like we can run alongside the dead center of a street used by cars. So as a result, you use a back road once you pass by in front of Arekusa shrine and look past the stereotypically white Rango hospital. You will begin to see Kamiyama High School. How did I know this? Well, you see, I ran it last year as well. I knew every length of the track from start to finish, but that knowledge wouldn't shorten the distance one bit. While I understood where we had to go, I felt it was necessary to omit the process in getting there. Even though it was probably impossible, it was likely the most optimal strategy at the same time. In other words, when needing to cover a 20-kilometer distance, one should at least allow to choose between using a bus or a bike. Unfortunately, this extremely rational thought process of mine didn't seem like it would be given much consideration. Up first was the river in front of the campus, and already issues began to crop up. The majority of the course took place in areas that had little traffic. However, this section alone connected to a city bypass, so there were a considerable number of passing cars. Additionally, there wasn't anything like a curve separating the pedestrian and motor roads, only a single white line. The only reason we had to start running this early was so we didn't cause any congestion in the streets. The students of class 2A ran in a single file line inside the area marked off by the white line. This was the only point in the entire 20-kilometer during which both the large students and slow students had to run the exact same pace. If they didn't, they would end up poking out into the roadway. Last year, we were more or less allowed to expand out from the single file line. However, this year it was strictly prohibited. It was a measure that the school took to prevent any accident, as a third-year boy was hit by a car in this area yesterday. Thanks to that, we were allowed the immense pleasure of being packed into a line that was difficult to run in. So I guess I wouldn't be walking this kilometer stretch. This line was jogging at a light, easy pace. The road ahead of me was long. If I imagined the jogging to the next level, walking instead, I suppose I could tolerate it. We finished the kilometer section before too long, and the course swung a wide right. We veered away from the main road leading into town and approached the school's rear. Thus began the upward slope. The single file line crumbled away, as if they were propelled by the building's frustration of not being allowed to run at their own pace. Those in the class that were more physically oriented immediately broke away from the group. Several groups of girls, most likely motivated by some promise to happily run alongside each other, also began to move up. And as for me, I slowed down, and slowed down even more. I was essentially walking at that point, but I continued to make it look like I was running regardless. Sorry to all the Hoshina and Hoshiga athletes out there, but I can't afford to be happy-go-lucky like you. In the span of these 20 kilometers, there was something I absolutely had to find out, and I only had 19 kilometers left to do. Roughly 100 meters into the upward slope, I heard a voice call out from behind me. Ah, there he is. I didn't turn around. The owner of the voice popped out in front of me. He is Satoshi Fukube. Then got off the bicycle he had been riding. From a distance, I thought he looked like some sort of androgynous gentleman. But up close, his face looked so indifferent from what you might have expected had you looked at his old middle school yearbook, that it surprised me even. Of course, the trouble was not that his face had actually changed that much, but rather that over the course of this previous year, he had come to look up all his emotions behind that facade. I didn't realize it, however, because I hadn't been face to face with him for almost 3 days. This year around, Satoshi became the General Committee Vice President. As the General Committee was running the Hoshiga Cup, its members didn't need to run. After all, they set up before the race started and were expected to be distributed around the course. He wore a yellow helmet and pushed his usual mountain bike. I looked at him with a sideward glance and said, "You sure it's fine to be slacking off like this?" It's fine. I already made sure that race started without a hitch, and I am not going to come back until the last runner passes the finish line. Must be tough. I understood that the General Committee didn't have to run as thanks for the efforts in supervising every aspect of the Hoshiga Cup. But now this guy was going to be flying all over the 20 kilometers course on this mountain bike to report if any unforeseen situation should ever occur. Satoshi dropped his shoulders. Well, it's not like I hate cycling, so it's not all that bad, but I wouldn't need to do this if I could only use my cell phone. How about you tell them that? None of the students on campus are technically allowed to carry cell phone. But in reality, if someone were to get hurt, you would use a cell phone to call for help, right? They seriously need to reevaluate their rules, I swear. With this, he leaned over the General Committee's inflexible organizational structure, but then a serious expression suddenly came over him. In any case, do you think you have an idea yet? As I sluggishly walked on, I responded carefully, "Not yet." Mayaka is. He started to speak but fluttered. I had an idea of what he wanted to say, so I started talking instead. It's clear that she suspects me. No, I don't think that's the case. It actually seems like she thinks it can be you. This is something someone told me. But apparently, she said, "I don't think Houtarou did anything. After all, he literally does nothing." A bitter smile crept across my face. Not only did that definitely sound like something Iwaru would say, but it had been like that in reality as well. I did absolutely nothing yesterday. If that's what she really thought, however, things became quite problematic. If it's not me, exactly. If it's not me, exactly, replied Satoshi with a deep sigh. If it wasn't me, there was only one other person it could be. I remembered what happened yesterday.